Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in June. So I read a total of, I think, 10 books. These are just the physical books that I read, and then I actually read a lot on my Kindle this past month, which is kind of out of the norm for me. I usually just stick to physical copies, but I will read a Kindle if it's like an e-arc or if it's something like a really chunky, thick book that I just need to like get through really fast. I had a lot of really good reads, and I continued my Throne of Glass reread, and I read a couple arcs which were pretty good. So we'll just talk about them all. So just to make sure I don't forget the ones that I read on my Kindle, I'm gonna have my phone out. I just basically track all my reads and stuff on Goodreads. So we'll go in order of when I read the book. So the first book that I read in June was The Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. This was the final book in the Ember and the Ashes quartet, I believe. And I did enjoy this book, but I didn't love it. I just remember enjoying the ending because the ending did wrap everything up really nicely. I just wouldn't say that I liked it as much as I liked the first two books in the series. And I'm not really gonna talk a whole lot about like what this book is about because it's the very end of a series, and so I can't really say a whole lot besides the fact that it wraps everything up. There's a lot of like political intrigue, there's a lot of like war scenes and just struggles that the characters are going through, and the way that she ended it was kind of with like mini epilogues in each main character's point of view. So they each got like a 2 to 3 page epilogue sort of at the end of this book, which hit home, and that's what kind of made me start tearing up. So I did really enjoy that part, and just how well I felt like the story wrapped up and concluded, and there was no like loose ends or anything. Yeah, so this was the first book that I read in June. It was a good start to the month because I always love wrapping up a series because it makes me feel so accomplished. So yeah, this was the first book. The next book that I read was also not concluding a series, but reading the 5th book in the Bridge Kingdom series, which is my like one of my all-time favorite romantasy series out there, like ever. This is the Twisted Throne. So this series is going to be a 6-book series. This is the 5th. It's comprised of 3 duologies, and each duology is following a different set of characters. So essentially there's like 3 different romances that you're following and between all these main characters. The first 2 books, which, can you even see this? Yeah, you can. The first 2 books are The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen, and the second 2 are The Inadequate Heir and The Endless War. And I definitely have to say that those first 4 books I loved a little bit more than this one. I just don't know if I was as invested in this female main character as much as I was in those first 2, but I just know Danielle L. Jensen's writing, and I know that she is tragic and she loves to make things bad happen to her characters that makes you just like reel. You go reeling as a reader and spiral, and I know that she's gonna do that with this next book. And usually that's how it is like the first one is you're getting introduced to them, introduced to the reason why they can't be together. You're learning their flaws and their wants and their all the things in the background of these characters. And then the second book is when basically shit hits the fan and all the things happen, and I just know I trust Danielle L. Jensen with my soul and my life, so I still really love this. I think I gave it like a 4-star. That's kind of like what I'm feeling in my head is like a 4-star. So I'm very excited to get the next one out. I have no idea when it's supposed to come out, but I will be ready when it does. Next book that I read was actually a library book. Actually, the next 2 books that I read were library books, The Rose Bargain and then The Ever King. Both of those books I talked extensively in my library reading vlog. So if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go watch that to get my reaction for these books because I loved both of them. The Rose Bargain was a YA romantasy that had a little bit of a dark twist to it. Old magic, fae, fairy curses, and like fairy lore and folklore. You know, like the original folklore fairies where they're like evil creatures that connive and trick you, and that's kind of like the vibes that I was getting with this. So also kind of gave me like the Cruel Prince vibes. I did not really love the Cruel Prince. It was just very, very YA, just felt way too young for my taste, and this was giving me that type of feeling. So I think if you liked The Cruel Prince, which I know a lot of people do, you definitely need to read The Rose Bargain, because I think you would love it. It's ultimately like a romance between two certain characters. There's like, I don't know if I would call it like a love triangle, but kind of, and a lot of tricks and turns and dark magic and stuff like that. It was very interesting. And then the next book was The Ever King by L.J. Andrews, which I actually just picked up The Ever Queen from the library. So I'm going to continue on with this. So I read The Ever King and loved it. Loved it so much. There were just some issues that I had with the plot. I just think that I wasn't as invested in the plot as I was the actual romance, but like I was head over heels in love with the romance. And our male main character, who will go absolutely feral over his woman, I loved it. I love that part so much, but the plot just kind of fell a little bit for me. But I will continue with The Ever Queen. I picked it up, so I'm going to read it, and we'll just see where it goes. I think that next book is going to determine a lot for me whether or not I want to continue the series, because if I don't feel like I want to know what's going to happen in the end, I'm not enticed to like pick up a book. So we'll just see. If she can really spark my interest in this next book with the plot, I think that we will be golden. Can't remember. I think I gave that a 3.5 or a 4 star. And then the next book that I read was an absolute joy. The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Pinner. Now, it just got really dark in here. It is starting to storm outside. The clouds are rolling in. Let me see if I can. So yeah, so The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Pinner. I read this, which is a very pretty book, and absolutely loved it. I loved everything about this. I loved everything about this book. I loved the premise. I loved the storyline and the background and the lore of this story. I loved the setting. I loved the romance. I loved the mystery. And I loved the fact that ultimately we're following a woman in STEM, or in like science technology. She's a researcher. She's a, what's it called? A nautical archaeologist who basically is following in her dad's footsteps to go and discover this lost treasure almost. You're basically, in her point of view, struggling in the STEM universe where women are not treated equally, not respected as much as men are. And she's having to go through a lot of like tribulations with that. And then along the way, she's living temporarily on the Amalfi Coast to do this research. Of course, she meets a handsome store owner out there, and she's going on these like fun little extravagant adventures in the Amalfi Coast. And then along with that, you're getting a history of old witch magic and curses that kind of are like following these women. And so you're getting multiple points of views in multiple timelines. And so there's a lot going on, but it's never complicated. I was never lost. I was just along for the ride, and immediately in the first chapter you're just like immersed in the setting. And I guess it's just Sarah Pinner's writing and her ability to like create such a beautiful picture. I was able to imagine it and picture myself there like immediately, and I just remember that being so intriguing, and I just fell in love with it so much. So because I read this book, I gave this like a 4.5 star. I immediately picked up The Lost Apothecary. I actually found it at the thrift store like literally the week that I read this, which is so funny, and I'll be reading it in July because I have to. I just love her writing so much. She's now definitely one of my like auto-buy authors now, I think, depending on how I like The Lost Apothecary. So The Amalfi Curse, definitely a super good read for me this past month. The next little book that I read after that was Roots of Darkness by Demi Winters. This is a book that I can't really say too much about. It's a novella, and it's a part of the Ashen series, which is the Road of Bones series, which is up here. I read the Road of Bones earlier this year, I want to say in like March, and so far there's only 2.5 books that are out, and she's coming out with a third one either later this year or early next year. And it's essentially a Viking romantasy with adventure and banter and betrayal and love and just badass female main characters. And that's originally what like drew me into these character stories. And so Roots of Darkness is a little novella that she just recently came out with in June that essentially follows one of the female main characters in this Viking clan that we're following in the first 2 books. And she was always like a mysterious character. You know she's got a heavy background, but you don't really know like everything about it. And she is one of our strongest female main characters that I think I've ever met in my life. You're just learning about her past, essentially, and you're learning why she is the way she is. She's got a disability. She, you know, lost an arm, so she only has one arm, and you're just kind of like in her mind as she's like navigating a world of Vikings and men and patriarchy. And yeah, it was just a beautiful book. I had a wonderful time, and I cannot wait for the third book to come out. So this is a 5-star, 100% a 5-star read for me. The male main character in this book is a tall, like 6'3", 6'4" Viking warrior with braids on the side of his head, and who's just absolutely sweet and adorable and like head over heels in love with this girl, and I just loved it. It is so dark in here. I'm really sorry if the lighting is just changing, because I'm telling you it's getting so dark and I don't know what to do about it. The next book that I read, I was very much in the fantasy mood this month. I read Nightweaver by R.M. Gray. Now this book I've had on my mental TBR for a very long time. This is one of the first books that I saw. I remember it being like my Amazon book recommended list or something, and I knew that it was about pirates. I knew it was like a Pirates of the Caribbean inspired romantasy, and it is YA, and I think that is the only thing that really threw me off about it. Also the fact that the first 5% of the book was on the water, was on the pirate ship. The rest of the book, like the last 90% of it, was not at all anything to do with pirates. Not on a pirate ship. It was fully on land and felt more of like a Regency style romantasy, which is totally fine, just not like what I was expecting with the description that like I was getting, or I guess like the marketing. But either way, I did enjoy it. I think it was a fun time. I definitely feel like it just felt a little YA for me, and I can't really pinpoint exactly why. Maybe it was like the character was really young. I want to say she was like 18 or 19, and that automatically for me, like I'm almost 30, I can't picture myself as a 19-year-old. I just can't. But I did enjoy this book and the way that everything is kind of like a mystery. It's a mystery to us as readers and to the female main character, and so she's like going through all these things and experiences, and you're just the whole time you're just like questioning what's actually going on. And there's this like mysterious male main character that we don't really know too much about, but he keeps popping up, and I'm like, I know he's important. Pirate who rescued her when she was a kid, and he popped back up somewhere in the story. And so we're like, yeah, I don't know. I think I would read the second book, but I don't know if I would like jump on top of it right away. You know, like I'm not like chomping at the bit like trying to get to the second book, but I definitely did have a good time. I just think that my expectations were probably a little too high for this one, but I think I would still recommend this to somebody who is still like loving the YA genre. The next book that I read was actually an ARC. It's called Where North Meets South by Ella Razier. This book, I will have a full review in a reading blog that's coming out next weekend. It's a reading ARCs blog, so that's going to be kind of fun. So I read this e-arc and I didn't really love it, but I also didn't not like it either. It just was super confusing for me, because the first like 75% of the book, I just felt like there was no direction, there was no plot. I didn't really feel like there was a point to anything really, and it definitely felt like a romance in a fantastical type of setting. The one thing that really did stand out for me though in this book is the author's writing. She had some killer quotes. She had some really, really good quotes in there that I highlighted and I loved. I think most of them were coming from the male main character, and just like the things he was saying were very swoony, and I had a good time with that. And then I was also kind of like an interesting world. It's kind of like old gods, and I think that they're humans living in this world from the old gods that the gods are like protecting almost, and they left these 10 Pegasus, like the horses with wings, like left the Pegasus or Pegasi on this world to protect them. And so the humans, I think they're humans, are like riding these Pegasus around, and that's just like an interesting aspect to it. And I don't think I've seen that in a fantasy book ever. So that was fun, kind of fun. And the artwork in this book was phenomenal. And then the next book that I read was Tower of Dawn. This is a continuation of my Throne of Glass reread, and it just makes me so sad that this book gets so much hate, because this is honestly like one of my favorite books in the series. This one, Queen of Shadows and Heir of Fire, obviously Kingdom of Ash, but this one specifically because it's such a redemption arc with Chaol, and I just think it's a beautiful story. And you're not only getting Chaol's story, I mean, you're still getting little bits and pieces of other people's point of view, so you still know what's going on. But yeah, I love this. This is still a 5-star for me. I love Tower of Dawn. Hopefully I didn't say too much and say too many spoilers to where I had to cut it out, because I was not thinking about saying spoilers or not. But yeah, I love this. Not a whole lot, you know, much else to say about this, because I can't really say too much because it's like the 7th book in the series. But yeah, I guess this is just a PSA. If you haven't read the Throne of Glass series, please read it, because it's 100% worth it. And I mean, even if it takes you forever to read it, just read it. It is so worth it. It is worth your time, I promise. Okay, and then the last book was Fairyale by Veronica Lancet. And this book, chef's kiss. One of the top 5 or top 10 books that I've read this year so far. Easy. This book threw me for a loop, okay? I was spinning the first, oh, it's hailing outside. It's hailing outside. I was spinning the first, I don't know, 25% of this book. This is a long book, okay? This was like a 772 page book or something like that. So it was definitely very long, and I think that was a little daunting, like going into it, because in the beginning it was just kind of like, I don't know, I was confused, wasn't sure if I was really loving. It's kind of like a paranormal feeling type of book, and in the beginning you're just introduced to a lot of questions and a lot of mystery and a lot of wondering what's going on. Basically, you're in our female main character's point of view. Her name is Darcy, and she's going to this town called Fairyale because she just got a letter in the mail from this long lost family that she's never heard of before, essentially saying that her biological father has passed away and she's inheriting a bunch of money and some estate and stuff. And so she has to go there to claim it. So she goes there, and immediately right off the bat, weird things start happening, and it's very suspenseful, very paranormal, and she meets some weird people, but oh my God, like thinking back on it, like all the things that happened in the beginning, your eyes get open at the end of the book when it concludes, and you're just like, oh my God, like that's why that happened, and that's who that was, and everything just came together so beautifully and tragic, and just like that story will stick with me for a very long time, and I'm so happy that I read it. This version of it is the traditionally published version of it from Atria Books. So I actually got this as an e-arc from NetGalley. So I'm not sure if this is even different from like the indie published version, but either way, it was such a beautiful, beautiful story. Ultimately, it turns out to be a love story. You're just going through the journey to undercover and like discover all the different facets and depth of this love story. And I'm telling you, it is the most beautiful thing that I've read. I think what was cool about it is it felt like I was reading 3 different books, because there are so many different aspects to this book. Like you go from suspenseful paranormal mystery to different universes, magic, monsters, it's definitely pretty spicy, to old curses, so many different things, found family. You have different timelines. So you have like parallel timelines, dual timelines, whatever the right verbiage is for that, but you're basically getting flashbacks into the past, and slowly the pieces start coming together and everything kind of like comes to light at the end. It was beautiful. I loved it. I loved it, and I will be forcefully shoving this in everybody's inboxes from now on. Yeah, it was just a great end to the month to read that book. Ended it on a bang for sure. And now I think I'm in a reading slump for the foreseeable future, because I'm reading a book currently and I'm not into it, and I think I'm about to DNF it because I don't know, I just can't stop thinking about Fairyale. And I feel really bad for this current book I'm reading, because I don't think it's that bad. It's just the hangover, and I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. So yeah, those are the 10 books that I read in June. We had a lot of highly rated books, only a couple 3 stars. I'm excited to go into July. I have a large TBR for July. Very, very large, presumptuous TBR for July, and I'm excited to get to all of them, but I'm a little overwhelmed. So I'm gonna try and slowly get to those. I think that I gave myself a lot of wiggle room to mood read in June. So we didn't hit, I think I read like 3 out of 7 of the books on my TBR, which is fine because ultimately I am a mood reader, and so I'm gonna give myself, you know, the decision to just pick whatever I want to read in the moment because I don't want to start something and not love it just because I'm not in the mood. And that will happen and I get anxious, and so we don't do that here. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you take anything away from this video, it is to read Fairyale. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.